Hi, friends. Oh, let me check. There we go. Got the volume up. Hello, friends. It's a beautiful, sunny spring day in Texas, and I am I am Sarah of Sovereign Mind and Biological Freedom. This is the May Satsang. We're going to keep it casual today, no slides. I'm always joined with my BFF and your BFF, your best friend forever, and or your biggest effing fan, Kuthumi. It's May 2024 is chugging along. We're going to continue our Anatomy of Light series. Last month in April, I took the time to introduce myself, tell you about myself, tell you my method of operating. Most of everybody I work with comes from Crimson Circle, except for about 10%. We have other beings come in that are lovely and beautiful and either came from somewhere else or came from nowhere, which is always lovely too. It's all lovely. It's all appropriate. So in April, we just took a break to welcome all these new people. So here you are. Maybe you came back, maybe you didn't. Door's always open. The back door is always open. And the satsang before that was March. And we talked about some really important things. Over 700 people viewed it. And thank you. Yeah. So the really important things, and we posted a recap, 5-minute recap. Aaliyah did all of the music and editing. She's so lovely. Aaliyah just doesn't just do the technology stuff and the videos. We also co-teach a program called Unraveling Realization, which we have done with 9 beings for the last 5 months, and we finish up next month. So in that recap, we talked about the difference between human, soul, and spirit, right? So I don't want to have to repeat that. If you want to know the difference between human, soul, and spirit, and knowing the difference between soul and spirit is so essential for the new energy, Christos, Christ consciousness experience. Soul is simply energy. Consciousness, your I am, is different than soul. It often gets lumped together. So we talked about that. Knowing the difference allows them to come together, allows energy and consciousness to coalesce. It's free and it's all yours. So building upon that, this is all part of the anatomy of light. This is the makeup, the anatomy of a conscious Christos light being of light. So and we're doing the simple things here. The keep it simple satsang, KISS, besos for my Spanish speakers out there. Keep it simple satsang. So I want to talk about what is an integrated body of consciousness. You hear it a lot. You think of things like aspect integration, ancestral freedom, all these different things, right? But if we want to keep it simple in this satsang, keep it simple satsang, we need to talk about the body of consciousness in a much more simple way. So the body of consciousness, obviously, you know this, is not just your physical body. We call that a gross body, GROSS. Gross body just means dense physical body. I take very good care of mine. So we have the gross body, and then we have the subtle bodies, the subtle energy anatomy, the mental body, right? The mental body, the emotional body, the astral body, which is related to the soul, and the causal body. The causal body is something that Kuthumi introduced to us, if you're not familiar with it, in 2021. And he began to talk to us about the causal body, and the causal body being the bridge between soul and spirit, right? So we're building on the March satsang, where we talked about the difference between soul and spirit. How do they come together? How do soul energy and spirit consciousness, energy and consciousness coming together to form Christos energy, New means Christos, not new as opposed to old, but Christos or Christ consciousness. So the causal body is what connects them. An integrated body of consciousness means all the subtle bodies and the biological body are singing the same song. Most humans, and we are all human and divine here, so that includes you. When I say most humans, that includes you. Most humans have maybe their head and their heart are saying something different. The head saying, like, logically, we should do this or shouldn't do this. Doesn't matter what it is. And the heart says, no, everything's fine. We should do it this way. But there are two opposing things. So the heart saying one thing and the head saying something different. The soul is saying it's time to experience realization and beyond. And the human says, but I'm not done doing my human thing, right? So that would be a disintegrated body of consciousness. An integrated body of consciousness is when all the subtle bodies and the biological body are singing the same tune. Further, in widening rings of being, further is not further on a linear timeline, further is exploring the infinitude, cannot be in a finish line, right? Cannot be limited to an arrival point. Arrival points are Makyo. Makyo means to make a nest. You arrive somewhere and you make a nest in it. You arrive at your realization and you make a nest around it so you don't leave your realization, right? Kuthumi pried mine from my hands and said, we have to go further to do what we're here to do. So further into this idea of an integrated body of consciousness, when you reach realization and you namaste on earth, and you choose to be here at this very important time on earth and be fully in your biology, no matter how uncomfortable that is, right? Realization starts to reach all your other lifetimes. So an integrated body of consciousness would also include, and this is, we're getting into the more advanced full luminosity expression, right? And this will really help your body too. All of your energetic imprints, which you might call lifetimes, are also realized. Now, as you integrate in down descending tree, avatara, descending tree, descending consciousness, we're not ascending, we're descending. The second coming of Christ is descending, and you are the second coming of Christ. I am the second coming of Christ, and you are, and you are, and you are. So an integrated body of consciousness, the idea of it changes. It just means all parts and pieces are singing the same tune. You integrate your life body here, all the other lifetimes will as well, right? So they're all, and all my lifetimes and all my parts and pieces are all singing the same song, and that song is God. God, 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 God. That is the rhythm of further. The rhythm of further is an integrated body of consciousness where all parts and pieces of yourself are singing the same tune. Maybe it's not God for you. Maybe it's love. Maybe it's light. It doesn't really matter. It just means they're all singing the same tune and they're not in debates with one another. So one of the things that people are constantly, people show up here in the email inbox. We haven't gotten an ugly email in over 6 months. That's a testament to you. And it's a testament to me rearranging the furniture in the house of Sarah. If I don't like what's going on around me, or it feels off, I rearrange the furniture inside the house of Sarah. Yeah, so I either did some rearranging or you did some rearranging, and I think it's probably both. So I just wanted to provide like a real simple definition of an integrated body of consciousness. Every part and piece is singing the same tune. And when they all start singing the same tune, something happens in your biology. So I've been working with Kuthumi for 4 years. Our contract extends into June 2025. We will finish up. It's been an honor and a pleasure. I have absolutely, he has taught me so many things, and I may not be channeling, which I don't really do. I explained that in the April video. I won't repeat myself. But Kuthumi has been a guru of sorts for me, a dispeller of darkness and a teacher. And it's really interesting because, and I feel the same way about everybody we work with. He's not a master training me to be a disciple, right? He's a master training me to be a master, right? And or a magus in our language, a magus, of the Magi is plural. The singular of Magi is magus. So it's a magus teaching me to be a magus. And everybody we work with, we don't consider them students, we consider them divine friends. We're all just walking each other home. And I want them to be a magus too. So that's kind of how it works here. But I know that Kuthumi will be influencing my writing. As you know, I'm a publisher of many, many books. It's my greatest joy is to put the books out. And my purpose for putting the books out for a couple reasons. I am a yogi, a Christian yogi, and I love yogis, but you see the yogis and their teachings, and there's a dude in a loincloth. He's reached samadhi and freedom, but nobody tells you how he got there. Nobody tells you how he got there. The channeled information, you have this grand being, right, who's being channeled, didn't have the guts to come back down here on earth like me. Come back down here on earth. I like to push buttons and get everything going because it rearranges things. It rearranges the furniture in the house of you. But it's similar. They have all the answers because they've already done it, which that's really helpful. Kuthumi has already done it and does have a lot of the answers, right? But there's like when I was in Crimson Circle, for example, Adamus was the lovely Jeffrey Hoppy was channeling Adamus in a radio show. And Adamus is talking about he's walking through the forest and he's excreting waste all over himself. That's a nice way to say crapping your pants. He's excreting stuff, waste, human waste all over himself, and he feels like he's dying in the forest. So see Hoon. And of all the materials in Crimson Circle, that was the most helpful for me to know that this grand being, Saint Germain, was in the forest crapping himself, was the most useful information that I received. So as I began to write my materials and share everything, I'm honest. When I met God consciousness, in my definition of realization, I'm going to talk you through the layers. It was so profoundly overwhelming to my nervous system that it went into fight or flight, and I did excrete on myself. And I had that little voice in my head of Saint Germain from the radio show interview. This was years ago, years and years and years ago. I couldn't even find it if I looked for it. I had that little thing in the back of my head that said, this is okay. You're not making this up, because someone you trust, Saint Germain, experienced this too. So people show up to do one-on-one sessions. I don't do a lot of them. I don't want to. But when someone shows up and they're earnest and sincere, there's a lot I can do because I know what they're going through, There's a lot I can do to sovereignly support that. So in all of our shares, we're really, really honest about the human part of it. And I often am kind of pushing up against the Western style of teaching, but in the East, they're not putting in like how did Babaji become Babaji? Yogananda did a great job in his autobiography, but he doesn't talk about the down and dirty of what this really looks like. So speaking of all that, I want to talk about, because I have some space between it. There's I experienced different levels of realization. And I started, I'm out there, I'm back on Facebook, I'm kind of looking at what everybody's got going on. I had to spend 4 years, Kuthumi, 4 years, Christ consciousness, forget realization. That's what Kuthumi was training me. And he's let realization go. We're working on the Christ consciousness. Two very different things. Realization establishes the baseline, but now we need to let it go, put it in the rearview mirror, and focus on Christ consciousness, which we do in the era of the Magus series, books and channels. You buy the book, you have access to all the channels. The corporate model of here's another thing and here's another thing is really works for other people, but it never felt good to me. So I have traded making a lot of money for not so much, but being able to sleep at night, which is priceless. So as I was, writing and starting everything, the most profound thing that happened to me, and I write about it in Becoming Sarah, book 1, is I went through, after my dad died and I got a divorce, and I hit rock bottom, my Kundalini, Shakti, pranic flow, energy activated at the base of the spine, and over the course of a year went all the way up. It ascended all the way up. I experienced extreme bliss for about 2-3 days, and then I came crashing back down, and I just didn't understand it. And after that crash, I went to look for answers. What's going on? I want that bliss back. I have the imprint of the bliss and I want it back. So I found Crimson Circle and they started talking about realization. So I was like, okay, cool. That's going to get my bliss back. And then I wrote my first book, which is the first half of this. We're going to record this in an audio studio to make it an audio book. Then I went through the 30 days of self-love. This is the Spanish edition. 30 días de amor propio. 30 days of self-love. And I wrote this as a human Lauren with the song of my soul, Sarah, and El Moria. And I went on a 30-day road trip with my dog, the professor, Mr. Oliver, who has since left his physical form. And I take you through 30 days of self-love because Moria said, this is what you need to do to get to the next place. You need to allow love to permeate your being, especially love of the human. So at the end of this book, I talk about the basic, I call it bus stop realization, but it is pretty profound. I had my human integrated into my soul. And I think that, like, when you look at all the stuff that's out there, I'm not saying all of it, but I don't pay attention to what's going on besides, I don't have the capacity beyond Kuthumi and all the other beings that I work with. I don't have the capacity, but someone sent me the round table with the Realized Shambra speaking, which I think is wonderful. The fact that you can hear other people's stories and it's not just some grand being from the 1700s, and Kuthumi's always encouraging all of us to tell our stories in whatever ways possible. He says there can never be enough people sharing about this experience, putting it out there, putting it into the technology, creating art around it. There can never be enough. So I'm a huge fan of people sharing their stories. If you go on my Facebook page or you're on our newsletter, anytime I find something cool, I share it with you guys, because this is not a corporation and I'm not competing against other spiritual materials. That's weird. I've never been like that. It's like, oh, hey, this is cool. Have you seen this? I shared Keiko's blog recently and a few other things. And I just love that. Keiko is someone who's co-created a lot of materials with us, used to be with Crimson Circle for quite some time. And it's just a lovely human being. And she's an amazing writer and she does audio for her stuff too. But what I realized when I was listening to, I only listened to 5 minutes. I just don't have the capacity of the Shambra Masters video. Way to go, CC, for putting some humans out there. Way to go. I realized they're really talking about the human integrating into the soul, right? You have the human and the master, and it's integrating into the soul. how is this related to the anatomy of light? We have to understand how all these dynamics work to understand the anatomy of light. The anatomy of light is not just your biological anatomy, it's your subtle energetic anatomy and your consciousness too. So I started to realize that that's kind of the human integrating into the soul, initial stage of realization. That happened in 2016. In 2017, and I kind of thought that was it, and I would just kind of glide from there. And then I had this dream that knocked me sideways. I write about it in book 2, which is the second half of this book. And it said, what if you traded one form of sovereignty for another? What if the human, the master, handed its sovereignty over to consciousness, to God? And I was like, I am Shambhala, I don't bow down to anybody, which is kind of the general consensus of the collective Crimson consciousness at the time. It has changed. So I said, yes. I said, well, if you're suggesting this to me, right, it's me suggesting it to me, then, and it's probably already happening, I'm just going to go ahead and agree to it because I don't have any fight left in me. So what I consider my actual realization is God self-realization. The soul who had integrated the human, integrated soul and human, met God consciousness, very different from soul, and integrated into God. Right? So that's another layer of realization. I had my Kundalini ascent, right? Then I had the human integrate with the master, is what they were calling it at the time. I don't know if that's still how it works, but everybody's out there calling themselves a master, so I assume so. So the human integrates into the master. That's about the time Moria kept saying, don't call me a master. The title's far too limiting. And I was like, I don't get it. Now I get it. It's like realization, master, blah, blah. It's in the rearview mirror, but it's a requirement. So if you feel that deep, deep passion for it, follow that. Follow that. What I talk about here is what's on the other side of it, which is not putting yourself out to pasture and thinking you're in your last lifetime, which is a very crazy concept. When you're in an integrated body of consciousness, all your lifetimes are realized and you think you're in your last one. It's such a bizarre thing. But it's a necessary thing for the human to come along. Oh, I hate being on earth is what the human says. And I want to end this reincarnation cycle in the old way, So those levels of realization, levels being, right? And it doesn't have to happen in a certain order either. Kundalini ascent, right? Human integrates into soul. Next expression, soul integrates into consciousness. And after that happened, because nobody was talking about it, I went on a deep dive of looking for materials, which I could only find in books. No one's putting that out. And well, I shouldn't say no one. There's a few teachers who teach advanced students. Soul integrates into consciousness. And you don't lose your soul, but you stop having your experience on earth as an individuated soul. And you start to experience the subjectivity of I am consciousness. Because of the codes and the programming around realization in CC and others, they have this fear that they're going to go into objective oneness. We're all one. And then you lose your individuality and your uniqueness. You actually trade the human identity and the soul individualization for a divine personality, a subjective, personal experience of I am consciousness rather than we are all one. People act like it's a danger. Don't go back into the we are all one consciousness. And it's like, how would that happen? I've had so many experiences on earth that are unique to me. I don't know how I would get sucked into objective universality. No, what you experience is a subjective universality. That has immense implications for your nervous system. Sosi Hoon, or Dragon Clarity as it's known, is spirit preparing soul to integrate into it. And that burns up all your belief systems, especially the one that you think you're an identity in the last lifetime. But it also rewires the nervous system. In January, Kuthumi and I, before he makes his his way out of here. We're going to teach, we're going to teach the teachers, not the students, teach the teachers. You guys had to get out of that duality, right? You got to get out of the duality, teach the teachers. We're going to teach the teachers on the actual layers and dynamics and characteristics of Sosihun and what it does. It changes your nervous system completely. The nervous system in the human body is a dualistic system. You're either in action, creating karma, action, 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 or you're in rest and digest, right? Parasympathetic or sympathetic. So Sosihun prepares the nervous system to become the third nervous system, where you're acting and observing from the same place, which is I am consciousness, which is infused into your biology from the spinal cord. God lives in your spine. What I'm experiencing now, because we're not in a finish line and I'm fully involved in life. I'm fully involved in life. Life expresses itself through me. I'm not afraid of going out and having an experience because I know I'm not going to create karma because I'm acting and observing from the same place of I am consciousness. You create karma from a human identity going out and acting, and then it acts, and then it comes back to observe, and it wisdomizes the experience, and it keeps you in that cycle of reincarnation, right? If you act and observe from the central channel, with consciousness radiating out of your spine, you're not going to create karma or another lifetime. Shambhar don't talk like this, but I think they're very afraid to go out and be life because of the reincarnation cycle. It's like, well, oh, I don't want to create another experience to wisdomize, right? But then wisdom becomes instantaneous, and you grow that fourth leg of the chair, Nost. We cover that in the light body sessions. It's an Audible book, and it's in a hardback book. So what I'm personally experiencing now, because there is no finish line, I am not doing the Makio nest arrival points. Any arrival point is Makio. Celebrate your realization and move on, right? Easier said than done. You work so hard to get there. You're like, I'm not letting it go. I'm going to build my nest here. I did it. I did it. I did it. I did it. Kuthumi pushed me out of the nest, and I'm so happy he did. So what I'm experiencing now is the descension, right, of that Kundalini Shakti. A lot of people who are experiencing initial realization, and I was one of them, the realization didn't happen inside of the body in a lasting way. It hangs in a conceptual bubble. Until you are in the third nervous system, you're in the breathing through both nostrils equally and simultaneously, called Sushumna, until you are able to command energy within your body. Realization is just conceptual. It doesn't, at this stage that I'm describing, you're not impacted by mass consciousness. You don't suffer. You don't have to have a conversation with different parts and pieces of yourself. After realization, Sosihun comes back, right? About a year after my realization, this is the poop your pants story. It's so important to be honest. It's so important to be honest. About a year after my God self-realization, not human integrating into soul, but soul starting to make its contact, soul energy starting to make its contact with God consciousness. About a year after, my mind went from an individuated mind to a mind that could comprehend the infinite. That sounds lovely. What it looked like is about a year after realization, I lost my mind completely. I couldn't sleep for 10 days. I couldn't eat. I lost 20 pounds. I went crazy. I went crazy. Even though I have money, I was homeless because I just couldn't get my crap together. I ended up going home to my mommy's house. I'm 1 year into my realization, and I go home to my mommy's house, right? This is the real story of realization. When you start to bring it into your body, you have to when you infuse spirit into this biology, whatever you have going on will be magnified. So if you still have little bits of suffering or stories, spirit coming into the body will magnify it in horrific ways, right? So we need to get the integrated body of consciousness. We need to know the weather. We need to know the weather of the mental body. We need to know the weather of the emotional body, the astral body, the causal body, all the subtle energy bodies. We need to know the weather of this biology. We need to be fully in this biology to inhabit our consciousness, to allow spirit to infuse through the back door, through the spine, into this biology, to have all those experiences that St. G talked about, the DeVere, the singular communications network rather than the complex network. So one of the things that Kuthumi and I created to help this experience for everybody is real simple. It's called the 365 Days of Light. It's one of the very few things we have in the store. We don't give it away for free because there's certain things that need an exchange to not blow you up. So the 365 Days of Light is something that Kuthumi and me as Sarah Consciousness recorded in April of last year. And 365 days are the number of days in a year. The number of days in a year. And so we do it, you do it every day for a year, and then you'll be ready. All right. Then you'll be ready for spirit to infuse. A lot of people don't want to do another thing. They think a year is a long time. It's not, when time and space or whatever, but you start to learn the weather. And it's not something designed. It has, you know, a conceptual video. It has an integration video with music and graphics made by Aaliyah, so it's excellent. And then it includes email support. We don't want you to do, Kuthumi and I do not want you to do our practice for 365 days. We want you to have an example so you can create your own experience where you learn the weather. You watch the changing weather in the mental body and the emotional body and all the subtle bodies. And we show you a way to do that and provide a standard through energetic imprints, through coded energy, coded Christ consciousness, coded energy. So there's energy codes in the videos. There's energy codes in every, this contains the energy code for human integrating into soul. Initial light realization. It's the realization where you wake up one day and you go, oh, right. It's real gentle. It's real gentle. Human integrating into soul. You wake up one day and it's just like, oh, or you're walking through the park or you're on the toilet and you just, I'm already realized. I've always been realized. Right. And it's real gentle and everything's just lightens up a little bit. Then if you're not tapped into a group grid that holds you back, that's more subtle anatomy. If you're working with a group, the subtle anatomy is, it holds you back. It can also pull you forward if you're in the trail behind, that group dynamic can really pull you forward. But if you're calling yourself a Shambra and you do all that stuff, you're tapped into that grid, which can be very supportive. I don't believe in right and wrong, good and bad, only what is. I am a yogi. We start with what is. But if you're a ripe banana, a ripe avocado, it will hold you in that space, which maybe you want to be held in that space. If last lifetime, human integrated into soul, you're a master, right? But for me, it wasn't even an option. It was like disconnect from the grid, right? Human's not in control, human integrated. Soul is being sucked back into spirit, whether I want it or not. Right. And that is not a gentle thing. That is a full-blown 72-hour time and space crack completely. And there's no exits, no turnarounds. You're on the I am that I am highway, which is your spine. The I am that I am highway, no exits, no services, no pit stops, no turnarounds. It's a straight highway and that's what you're on. Hell or high water. You can't even tap into the group thing anymore. It's even if you wanted to, you want to because you want to have friends and you want to, be cheering everything on. It doesn't mean you're not supporting something like Heaven's Cross. God knows it's running through your entire biology. You're supporting it. You just can't go do a group meditation where it's like, as a group, we're going to go. It's like, no, we're not doing that, even if you want to. But divine friends show up on the other side, which is how I got Kuthumi. I would be so alone, right? So all this is happening, right? This at once once energy touches consciousness, it's like an explosion went off in your life. It's not like you're able to sit calmly on a YouTube video being interviewed and you talk, oh, and there was just, oh, and then, you're like, you don't have the passion of a paper bag. You have the passion of, I have met God and stared it in the face. I have gone back to the wall of fire, reached through and claimed what was always mine to claim, my inadmittable I am consciousness. You can't sit in a chair. You can't sit in a chair anymore. I'm not going to be able to sit still in this interview. I'm not going to be able to sit still in this interview because I have met God consciousness and I am drunk on it. I am drunk on God consciousness. That is what God self-realization looks like. The human integrating into the soul is, I wish I had just relaxed more. And that's lovely because those people have peace, right? But this is not what we're doing here. This is not what we're doing here. 365 days of light will allow you to meet God consciousness in a more gentle way, because whatever is not that, you meet God, you have the experience, you're like, I met God. Your face, the term face melting, that's like stoners use it. Oh, my face is melting off, man. Your face is melting because your master identity is melting off your face. You wouldn't be able to sit in a damn interview. I couldn't even get my hair done. I couldn't even brush my teeth. Some days I couldn't even get off to turn the light switch up and down. Sosie Hoon comes back around. Bring it on. Bring it on. But I don't want people thinking there's something wrong with them. This is the point of me doing this. It is not to make fun of anybody. I don't want people to think something's wrong with them when they don't look like this. And then one day it just happened. I'm no longer a student anymore and everything's just so easy. Right, let's get the third nervous system going. Let's talk about the light body. Let's move on. Let's disconnect from the collective consciousness matrix of masters. Right, and I'm not pushing you. It's just, I know some of you are the ripe avocado. You are the banana, and you're starting to get those little black spots that are overripe banana gets. Eat the damn banana. Let's make some guacamole, right? So 365 days of light is going to be required for our future programs. Like, you need to have done it for the whole year. I have all these materials on the Pia Mature. The Pia Mature is a meninge, right? It is a permeable membrane that surrounds the spine, and the cerebral spinal fluid can permeate through it to reach all of the body. It has a great biological function. You can look it up at a medical dictionary. Pia Mature, it means gentle mother in Latin. But it is how you physically shine your light on earth. So we developed all these Pia Mature materials, and I was going to load them up. We talk a little bit about it, and we introduced the concept in the Magi's Definitive Guide to the New Human Species, which includes all the light body sessions. So we introduced that concept, but then I did a deeper dive and I created all these materials around the Pia Mature. We have 40 people in our New Energy Human Database program right now, and they all have access to these materials. So I was going to load them up in the store, and I don't have a technology person, so I do my best, and I'm not here to make $1 million. I'd rather just have, like, if you feel it and you want to send a donation, that's great. That's how I feel about things. And then our intimate programs are, you have to pay for those because it's my body that I'm running all this information through, my time. And so those programs are, you have to pay for those. But I'm trying to load it up and it won't load. And Yogananda, who helped me put it all together and who's been working with me on fine tuning, shining my light and what it's doing to the biology, and any little bits of karmic stuff stuck in the body come out, like through a cold sore or something mild. You smell, you sweat, whatever it is. Just little bits, because you don't want to infuse the entirety of your consciousness into this biological form. If there's any bits of karma, you may have processed it conceptually or in your subtle bodies, but it needs to come out of the biology too. So you get little things like that, or the sweats or a skin rash or red cheeks. It's just the little bits coming out. But I try to put it in the store, and Yogananda's like, if they're not ready, it'll blast them. We can't make this public. All right, so you have to get it in the program. So you have to do 365 days of light first. I never wanted to have layers and tiers. And then I realized I also don't want to blast people. So I'm going to listen to his guidance, because he's a hell of a lot smarter than me. I'm only 7 years in, he knows way more than I do. So I really have trusted advisors. One of the things that really I have problems with, and I'm trying to understand it. I get a lot of emails from Shamra, no longer nasty ones, but nice ones. And there's a lot of things around the mind and mental instability. And, and there's a whole year-long program over there. And there has been, it's probably finishing up soon. That's what someone told me, that the channeler is going to retire. I'll believe it when I see it. But, I was in that program, and there's not like, and there shouldn't be, I'm not trying to correct it, but it's like, it's really hard, because you're in that program listening to these channels. They're really intense, and there's no 1-800 number to call. And, it's not like you can get advice in the forum, so there's not like a support system, which is okay. That's not what they're doing. They're not providing counseling services, right? But then the same person putting the channels out says, you shouldn't see a psychologist. You shouldn't seek help from somebody else. There's like the war on people like me. I'm a fake guru. I have a complex, whatever. It's my spiritual ego. God, if it was my spiritual ego, I could have quit this damn job years ago. I have tried to quit so many times. It's like, no. Right. But there's a war on getting support from people like me. So I'll get emails. It's like, I really need support, but if I come to you, I'll be a student, and I don't want to do that. So like, they've been told that it's wrong and bad to come talk to somebody. I talk to someone all the time, a real human in a body and disembodied beings. And I get feedback from them. Right. I couldn't do my job if I didn't check in with somebody else. I don't lose sovereignty by doing that. And I don't want to be that person for Shamra. I do not. I'll do it if they have nowhere else to go and they appropriately make the exchange. Right. But I don't want to be that person. That's not what I want to do. I want to write books. I want to do our intimate online programs, but I have that one-on-one session up there just in case. Right? I will be that person for you if you need me to be, but it's not like it's not my passion, but I'm good at it. But what I'm trying to say is, like, so they don't provide any one-on-one support, and they tell you not to get it elsewhere. That's really rough to me. There's something there that's really, really rough. So I use that as not a criticism, but as a learning thing. It's like, it's better for me to put the materials out, and then people come on small group calls. They learn more from their peers in consciousness than me, and they share their experiences, and it kind of normalizes what's happening as you go into the rhythm of further, so that's kind of what we're doing. I really want to talk about, so when when you're in awakening and initial realization, you have like a dialogue between human and soul. Right. And then when soul integrates into spirit, you stop having that dialogue and it's like singular for a while. Right. But then there's this thing where the human part that goes through not a physical death or a death, but it dies. It becomes a needle in the haystack of God. I mistaked it. All the clues and everything, I mistook it for I was leaving Earth. It was just so incredible and overwhelming, these feelings of leaving. And then I realized, like, I'm dying without death. And there was no materials on it. I'm dying without death. We get to it at the very end of the era of the Magus book for those who actually can stick with it. And so what we call it, it used to be, you know, all the talk was little YU or little S self and big YU or big S self. So there's human and divine, and they kind of interact and then they integrate, but you still experience yourself as a human. Right. But what I'm experiencing with soul integrating completely into consciousness as a completely new energy being, Christos consciousness, right, is that I became, Lauren did die. Like I had a big to do about him leaving Earth. And, you know, I really thought I was. And now I know enough of you and enough people in our advanced programs to know they have gone through this too. So I have data. I have the data points that I get from our online programs. And without the people in our online programs, there would be none of this, you know? So instead of it being little YU and big YU relationship, I'm just going to briefly introduce to it and to tell you, you're not dying, like we're literally dying. I mean, I redid my will. I started packing up my stuff. I mean, doing final goodbyes. I mean, I was going through it. And then my spirit had come to me after the big God self-realization and said, 5 more years, dear human, you have 5 more years. And at the time I was like, 5 more years. And then they went by so fast and I was having so much fun. I was like, I don't want to like, but then I was having really trouble sharing without people trying to kill me. And, you know, I just was like, wow. So I started to believe, you know, on September 23rd, 2023, that I would be gone. And on that day, I did die. And then I'm still here. What? So I've had multiple people tell me these stories. People don't ever want to come over here, but they end up here because they need to find other people like them and they cannot get it anywhere else. And at first they come in, they're like, I don't know why I'm here. And then they realize, and then they thank me later. Oh, thank God. And I say, I'm so glad to be able to do it for you because there were no materials on this for me. So instead of the little YU and big YU relationship, it becomes big YU and big YU relationship. We're not in duality. It's big YU and big YU. So what I started calling it, because you know me, I got to tell a story, is Sarah. Sarah's right here. I am that I am Sarah. And then I have an unmanifest Sarah. And the way I talked about it was, you know, you see this water bottle, right? Here's a water bottle. There, it's physical. I can tap it. There's also an unwater bottle. There's an unwater bottle. And that's a, you know, the water bottle knows itself as a water bottle. And there's there's manifest and unmanifest water bottle. So I started to experience myself that way. Sarah manifest and Sarah unmanifest. And I had a long conversation with Sarah unmanifest from here. And I was like, dear unmanifest Sarah, I know that Lauren's dying, but I really love her and I don't want her to die. And I still want to be on Earth. What's happening? And she just told me, she said, don't worry, Lauren's becoming a needle in the haystack of God. In all your lifetimes and all your identities, we call them energetic imprints, are also a needle in the haystack of God. And you get to be a fully integrated being, and the designated ascendee integrates, and then it's not designated anything. It's just another lifetime. right? So we really get to all that in our Divine Blueprint materials. I would advertise our Divine Blueprint course to you that's happening in August, but it's sold out immediately. Sorry, maybe next year. So that I sense that's enough for today. If you want to come play with us, or you think you might want to come play with us, or you feel God consciousness knocking at your door, try the 365 days of light instead of losing your mind after realization. Try some of Kuthumi's slowly back away from the need to perceive. And if you see someone, well, one day I just woke up and now I'm a master, and everything's just it's just so even. No, 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 no. Right? Know that they're not lying. It's true, but know that that wears off. And then the real tsunamis of consciousness start coming. And if that's happening to you, there's nothing wrong with you. You did not lose your realization. And it's scary. And if you need support, I'm here, but no pressure, because I don't use this to pay my bills. And I am not trying to build an empire or a corporation. I just want to leave breadcrumbs behind. I want to make sure nobody suffers the way I did in having to disconnect from over there to be here. And I've been working with Yeshua and Babaji and Yogananda deeply on this descension of Kundalini. Without the Kundalini flow, namasteing on earth is not possible. In Shambhala world, realization is conceptual, and it looks real to other conceptualized, realized beings, right? Because they're all kind of in the same spot and they're all tapped into the same grid reality. When you disconnect from it, you go, wait a second, there's no pranic force. There's no pranic flow. Consciousness is a verb, Shakti, prana, spirit. There's nothing flowing in them while they're talking. Can you hear it? It's the rhythm of Earth. Except then you can't get on your mainstream Crimson TV network. Only here, the alternative source for new energy creators. Oh my God, guys, that's enough for today. I love you. I love you. I see you. And if this version of realization is not what you want, you don't have to get it here, but it is out there. All right. And you won't be able to contain the passion for living the Christ consciousness right here on earth, and understanding how you shine your light through the PM tour and how it affects their mind and down to your fingernails, and how it affects the being in life, allowing it to flow through. And when bad things happen, you don't think, oh, I'm not a master. You think, oh, how's this going to turn out in my mastery? There's so much. Don't stop here. Don't stop here. Namaste. Namaste. On earth. Namaste on earth. We are Sarah Kuthumi. And man, we are your biggest fucking fans. Enjoy your weekend, friends.